Now I can say it's true that if you go and start your own business, you have to be crazy, right?
I
Like
would agree with
there's
that. Yeah.
something not right with you to go do that. So when I decided to do this, and it was actually my wife who spurred me to do it because she was like, I'm tired of hearing you talk about doing something. Either do it or stop talking about it.
Yeah.
The Industrial Sage Executive Series, sharing the stories behind game changing executives, their organizations, and insights into today's industry challenges.
Well, hello and welcome to the Industrial Sage Executive Series. Today, I am joined by the CEO of Ad Victoriam Solutions, Mr. Jeff Jones. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today on the Industrial Sage Executive Series.
Great to be here.
I'm excited to jump into this. So I've been kind of familiar with your company and you for a little bit, for a couple of years now. I'm so excited that we have you on the show. But for those who are not familiar with Ad Victoriam Solutions, or as I understand, you guys can also go by AdVic or just Ad Victoriam. For those who aren't familiar, just give me sort of the high level of who you guys are, what you guys do.
Sure. So we're technology consultants in a nutshell. We're in the business of digital transformation, which is, I guess, a bit of a buzzword these days. But essentially, we work with a variety of businesses and industries. And Salesforce is our technology of choice, our partner that we work with. And when people have decided to move forward with Salesforce, or if they're curious as to whether they should and how it would impact them, we come in and kind of make that magic happen from there. We understand their business. Um, we get to understand what their business is, what makes them different, and then we use technology to apply and enhance their business so they run seamlessly and more optimized.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, digital transformation is certainly a big buzzword in the industry for sure. And Salesforce is, when it comes to CRM, sales enablement, I mean, there's certainly the leading horse there. So I'm excited to kind of jump into that a little bit more, as we get down into the episode. But for now, I'd like to know a little bit more about Jeff. I want to know your story, like, your background. How did you get into this space? Like, take me back. Like, where does this story begin?
Well, let's see, how far do you want to go back here? I will tell you what I normally tell people, right? So, I went to UGA, had an
All right.
undergraduate
Go
international business.
Dogs. I like it. We're starting off right. Okay.
Um, and in the mid 90s, way back then, I worked for a medical manufacturer for capital equipment for hospitals and was in sales for them, had a territory, Georgia and Tennessee, and was very much kind of just in sales. And then there was this amazing technology that came out to the late 90s. You may have heard of it, called the internet, right?
Yes.
And it became a land rush, right? Everybody kind of drove into that space. And I went back and did a MBA at State at the time, right? They were the only one that had a night program that you could go do, focused on technology, and came out and worked for Ernst & Young for 7 years doing coding, object-oriented programming, relational databases, enterprise systems. Got done with that and joined a company, a boutique consulting company. Was Microsoft. That was my technology of choice at the time, in consulting. And that's kind of where my sales and my technology world collided. And I would take customers that were originally like 50,000, and next thing you know, they're spending $500,000, $1 million with us on the things that we were doing for them and having a lot of success on that. And helped grow that company upwards to about, I think they were probably 10 people when I joined, and well, almost 100 when I chose to leave, and was president of that company. And had decided that Salesforce was real, right? They had kind of moved beyond just CRM at the time. They were really moving into entire business line of applications. And so that's when I decided to found Ad Victoriam back in 2014, right? You always think you can do it better. You always can think, when you watch others run a business, you're like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And then you start a business and you realize why people make some of the decisions that they made during that time. So, but that was kind of the journey that got me there, sales, business background, then coupled with technology has been very successful because bridging those two, it's not easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, when you're at UGA, I mean, what were you studying?
I did international business at the time.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was great. I worked in Germany for a couple of summers for a beer distributor.
Oh,
Best job.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah, that was great job when you're in college, but not
absolutely.
long term, not long term viable.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. So that's
No,
kinda-
that's great. So, I mean, what I'm curious, you got into coding and what, I mean, that's a bit of a jump from international business. How did that happen?
well, so I tell people if you go into technology, you have to be a problem solver, right? You can't be frustrated with the technology. It's a bit of a puzzle. And for full transparency, my wife, who also went to Georgia, was an MIS major, and she was already in technology. And I found myself liking the things that she was doing more than the things that I was doing. And she had started out as a developer as well. And like I mentioned, as when the internet first came out, right, it was anybody, everybody was picking it up, right, learning about it, and it was fairly basic in how you went about it in those days. And I just enjoyed the problem solving aspects of technology. Still do. Like I miss being near the code sometimes. I'm not saying I want to go back, but there are aspects about it that I miss. The trying to solve things, the banging your head on the wall for a little bit, and then the eureka coming in and having it work successfully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like, when I'm curious because, you hear these stories all the time where, you go into college or whatever, I'm going down this way, and then there's an inflection point, something changes, and you say, hey, it sounds like, with your now wife, maybe you're presuming you guys were dating at the time,
Yeah.
that, that was the inflection point. You discovered what she was doing. You're like, well, this is kind of cool. Like, I like this stuff. And then just kind of took that passion and just kind of followed that trajectory. Is that more or less accurate?
Yeah, I mean that's a fair assessment. For me, I look back and by the way, if you've never been to the Computer History Museum down in Roswell, you should get down and check that out. We just took our team out to it. And I bring that up because as I look back, like there was a time where only nerds and people you kept in the back room worked with computers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could be wrong, but I think in the 90s that changed a bit where more and more people could get into it, and the internet made that available, where it was a little more ubiquitous. Everybody could get into it and they understood why and how they went about it. So as you talk about an inflection point, I think that was for me where that kind of came together, because I always found it interesting, but I also had like people skills and I wanted to get out and do those things too.
Yeah.
So that kind of just my mind came together at that time.
Yeah. So talking about that inflection points and changes, I mean, is there somebody that you can recall, or maybe a specific event that maybe has just triggered either that light bulb moment or just something that throughout your career has just really made a massive impact and has helped you to get you to where you are today?
To say that there's only one would probably be not fair, right?
Sure, of course.
I look back on my journey. I've been very fortunate to have a number of people who kind of help guide you or give you advice along the way. I mentored under somebody when I was in sales. Like I got to work with them and carry a territory and work very closely with that individual. Because it worked for a private company, right? So you could do things that you can't do at Publix. And he was
Right.
sick with cancer and couldn't get around. So, like, well, we'll just put two people together and y'all go figure it out. And so I was very fortunate to learn from that experience. A lot of the stuff that he had done in sales over the years, I picked up on that. And then when I got into technology, I had a good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, so he was really good to work under. He was my boss, but in the technology space and how to approach problems and problem solving that he had learned when he was in the military about break down the complexity, bring it down into its component parts, bring it back together. and how to think about certain problems and so forth. So definitively along the way, there's always others that, give you an opportunity if you're willing to listen to them.
Sure.
Which is why I'm always trying to find people that we can mentor or help. It's probably one of the more rewarding things as you grow a business, that you can bring others in and watch them grow and build their own careers, and ideally not step on the same landmines that you see going along the ways. But they're like kids too. Sometimes you can't tell them; they're going to figure it out for themselves.
True. No, totally. That's a really good point. So, how did you, where do you think this entrepreneurial spirit that you have, where do you think that came from?
My mom says I've always had it. I don't recall. She tells the story. I'm like, I don't remember it that way, but okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll be honest with you, I don't know where it came from. There is a certain amount. I've been in consulting for a long time. Consulting's one of the best parts about it is you get to work with a lot of different industries, a lot of different people, and you're constantly making recommendations and how to do things better and how they should be done. And maybe at some point it was like, I had that same desire where the company I worked for, I loved the owner there, but there were things that I thought needed to be done that weren't being done. And so it was like, well, then let's go do it.
Yeah.
Right? Here is an opportunity to go do it. And that's where that came from.
So what did that look like for you specifically? Walk me through that moment when you said, because there's obviously a difference between, oh yeah, we should do things differently and yada, 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 to actually doing it, or taking that step to say, in your mind, this isn't just crazy talk in the back of my head. I'm actually going to take action on this and do it, and I'm going to say goodbye or whatever. What was that moment for you? What did that look like?
So I've made the argument before, and now I can say it's true that if you go and start your own business, you have to be crazy, right? Like
I would agree with that.
Something not right with you to go do that, because especially when you're creating something from nothing. And I was president of the company that I was with at the time, that consulting company, the Microsoft shop. So when I decided to do this, and it was actually my wife who spurred me to do it, because she was like, I'm tired of hearing you talk about doing something. Either do it or stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Which is great, because she's my support for everything and kind of the impetus that pushes me. But at the time, because I was president, I could not go build something and step away. Like a lot of people talk about, the ethically
side hustle or something,
right? You're right. Like ethically, I was not going to do that. So one day I walk in and I'm like, I'm done, which was a bit of a shock, right? Good position, all that, and then just walk away from it. And I also tell the story, the person that joined me, his name's Brian Mize, when starting the company. I was the sales guy, he was the technical guy, and he had been a customer at one point in time, so we've been friends for several years. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. Come with me. We will go do this. And finally he agreed, and he said, okay, I'm in, but you're quitting your job first. So I had to go quit my job. And then he's like, oh, okay, this is real, and go do it. And I tell people, right, like it's crazy, right? Because we started the company in May from nothing. And by December that year, we had sold a total of $1,700. Right. So,
I'm sure we're not missing some zeros there. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You start to question yourself, like, what have I done here? Like, it seemed brilliant, months ago, but there's a level of determination and will that goes into it, and recognize that as you're doing certain things, they are foundational and they do not make an immediate return on what you're doing. And you build on that, because then our second full year of 2015, we hit 7 figures, right? So
wow.
And then you build on it from there, right? There's relationships, there's things about the business, there's hiring and things of that nature that you just have to get done. And we've kind of hell bent on doing it our way. And so far, so good.
That's awesome. Well, I know I could go on probably for another 2 hours on that. That's for sure alone, because I'm fascinated by these stories, and I think it's really cool. So kind of pivoting though a little bit to today.
Sure.
What are as I understand it, I guess I'll ask this first, and then I'll move into another question. But what are the kind of the primary challenges that you're solving today for companies?
It can be industry specific. I know you guys like to talk a little bit about manufacturing and so forth.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And a lot of what we're seeing over there is a big investment in the B2B commerce,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
B2B commerce, right? Where you can sell directly to who you want to, because when everything got locked down during COVID, right, and you're dependent on people who are normally in the field writing up orders and things of that nature, and now that is not an option for you. That's pretty damn scary.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a lot of investment on that. We do a lot of commerce. In general, it's we break our business up into a lot of product suites, but commerce is the leading horse. And so we're just seeing a lot of investment in that in particular, right? That ability to go to market digitally and seamlessly is what we're seeing a lot of. Plus tying in a lot of your back end systems, right? Where you're not as dependent on manual intervention.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier, I find it funny, people say Salesforce and the first thing they think is CRM, right? Because that's their lead horse, right?
Yes.
I make fun of them sometimes, because that's their ticker symbol too,
Mm-hmm.
CRM, which is fantastic, right? But they are so much more than that now. They
Yes.
painted it so more. They have a service offering. They have a commerce offering. They have what's called CPQ for order
Mm-hmm.
taking, portals through their experience. So they have a very broad offering for full back-end systems. And a lot of what we're doing is now bringing all of those offerings together for companies, right? So it works seamlessly versus, you have 8 different vendors that you're always trying to work with and wiring those systems together, which is doable, right? There's some systems that you just have to interface with, but now maybe you can put it all on a single platform and reduce the complexities involved and make things more seamless.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. Yeah, they've certainly made a significant amount of changes and acquisitions, over the years. I mean, I remember when they bought, Pardot in Atlanta, which I think was it ExactTarget bought them first.
Yeah,
and then,
kind of the big fish eats the small fish, and then a bigger fish comes along.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Target got Pardot because Pardot's a B2B marketing automation, and ExactTarget was a B2C.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the full portfolio for marketing automation. Therefore, when Salesforce bought them, it was a one-stop shop.
Yeah, exactly. No, that just seems to be the theme for a while. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to about that I thought was interesting is to be 100% honest with you, I had not heard about this before, and that was about this concept of B Corps. And that was, I had met some people on your team, and they were telling me about it, and maybe I had come across it once or twice or something before, but nobody gave me, I didn't know, I didn't have the full explanation. So I just thought that was a very interesting concept. For those who are unfamiliar, like myself prior to knowing what that was, what exactly is a B Corp, and how are you guys involved with that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so B Corp, it can be confusing, right? Because as a business, we are still a LLC. B Corp is not there is a B Corporation, which is you're structured a certain way, but B Corp as itself is really just an accreditation that you can go and get. We like to talk about, business for good or a force for good. We aligned with B Corp early on because we wanted a series of guardrails to help guide us and keep us focused on a lot of the reason we started the business, which is taking care of our employees, taking care of our customers, being considerate of the environment. Believe it or not, back in 2014, those were, I don't say they were radical, but people didn't really talk about that as much at the time. And so we went ahead and worked on the accreditation. We got some help from the University of Georgia in their graduate program and made some great hires out of it to boot. But we used it to help us understand things that we wanted to do. So it got us much quicker in how we do our benefits, right? So when we started rolling out benefits, how we went about it. So we covered 100% of the employees' benefits, health, dental, vision, and things like that. And as a small business, that was a hard decision to make, right? Because it is very expensive. But based upon the values we wanted to grow and live by, those were decisions that helped drive that. How we do things as it relates to the environment, our suppliers, which, as a consulting company, we don't have a lot of suppliers, right? Our main value is in people, but just, what we ended up doing is we put in volunteer time. So every employee has 40 hours a year that they can take off for volunteer work. It's not vacation. It's just, if you want to go work for a charitable organization, we make that available for you. So for us, B Corp was a way to make sure that we're always focused or kind of on the core of, as we talked about, wanting to do it better. Because if you're growing a business, it's easy to lose focus of that, right? Because what are you thinking? You're like, revenue, growth, where's the next thing coming from? How are we delivering? This was something that we could also use to make sure that we were always still focusing on those other things. So I encourage people to look into B Corp. And what I tell them is, even if you don't go through the full accreditation, because it is very rigorous, there's a lot that's in there that you can pull from and kind of put in your tool belt to help your organization overall.
So excellent. So if I, understand, if I were to boil it down, it's just almost like a sense of rubrics or maybe ideals is maybe kind of a weak word, but just in terms of helping to shape the culture, but putting some very actionable items into it that say, hey, we value employees, we value the environment, and having specific programs around that.
Yeah, all right. So it's a way to ensure you back up what you say, like, hey, we're into diversity. Well, there's a whole section in there where you have to kind of say, well, and here's how we're approaching diversity, and here's how our team is made up within diversity, and here are the offerings that we also make available for people when we say we are diverse, or we care about the environment. Okay, well, these are the programs that we have in place for recycling. Here's how we make sure that if we are a supplier, that we source our materials and our supply chain from people that are small businesses that also care about the environment and things of that nature, right? We care about our employees, right? Okay, well, explain what you're doing around that, versus just kind of like, hey, that's a great marketing slogan. Why don't we throw that on our, on our website too? So that is where kind of B Corp brings it all together to make sure that folks are actually living and adhering to the things that they say they care about.
Yeah, I know, it's excellent. And so how long did it take to go through that whole accreditation process?
Out of that, for us, it took almost 2 years, right? Because we knew nothing about it, and we were getting help through the university to get through it. I think people can get through it faster now, but it really depends. Nathan Stuck from our team, who is our director of culture, and somebody that we hired out of Georgia for helping us, still works with other companies to help them get through it. I think we see some people get through it in 6 months, but a year, because you have to go and change things, and you have to do a lot of documentation around it and stuff like that. So it's, like I say, it's pretty rigorous.
Excellent.
But I don't know if I answered your question. It took us 2 years.
Yeah, no, that was. I was just curious about. You mentioned that it was rigorous, and after understanding the different programs and the changes, that stuff takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So, yeah, just curious about that. So, for those maybe companies that are interested in learning a little bit more, I'm assuming they've got there's a website or something, or you can go check that out.
.org I believe, but it's
so we'll figure out what that is and put that in the assuming it's going to be B Corp something. So
there you go.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And so you guys started that? You mentioned, like, when you started the company, was that part of the Like, was that one of the one of the
It
early on
wasn't
initiatives?
Day one, we knew, my wife and I knew in particular that we wanted to do something, like we wanted to, all the things I kind of talked about there were important to us, but it was still rather abstract at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And, in full transparency, I was doing some research and noticed a competitor. I was like, hey, what's that? And I looked, I'm like, I like that. That sounds pretty cool. And that's where we picked it up from there, because there's only one other in the space, right? As you're growing, or at least as we were growing, you always look at somebody, you're like, I want to be like that guy. We
Sure.
want to, like the one step up, right?
Right.
And so I was doing some research and found one, and that's kind of how we stumbled across it. And it's been very, very beneficial for us, especially as we've grown from a culture perspective, right? When people join our company, they know who we are, which makes our hires a little more targeted.
Yeah.
Which is good.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like you mentioned, it helps to kind of put those guardrails up there to align your mission, your objective. So you're mentioning, with hiring, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into a little bit more, and so people can identify, say, oh, I like this. This is great. Not only am I getting a paycheck,
Right.
the motivation, as we're seeing, I think, is shifting more into purpose and more into like, oh, I'm passionate about it. I like what I'm doing, but I'm also, if I can align all those things, then that makes a lot of sense.
It helps a lot. And it's interesting. We have pockets, so our team's all over the U.S. Like the nucleus is in the Atlanta area, but that's probably 50%, and the rest, we got people in Hawaii and Montana. We have these little pockets, and we have a pocket in Indianapolis, and they wanted to do a volunteer event. So we flew some folks up from Atlanta, and they all got together and did a weekend volunteer event. It's fantastic. Again, it kind of drives the culture, gets everybody, especially with so many people remote, it's an opportunity to come together and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. That's awesome. Well, like I said, we'll definitely put the link in the show notes and on the video, so people can take a look at that, if they're interested. But Jeff, listen, I have really, really, really enjoyed our conversation, and I don't lie when I say we definitely could probably go another 2 hours just talking about entrepreneurship, B Corp, let alone all the technology disruption that's going on and the transformation in and around the manufacturing space, outside, above and below. But thank you so much for your time and kind of sharing your story with us, with our audience, sharing about B Corps. I think a lot of people are going to like what they hear.
Fantastic. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully it was moderately interesting and helpful.
Oh, definitely. And so for those who want to be, who would love to learn more about you guys as well, advictoriumsolutions.com or advic.com, either of those work, is that correct?
Yeah, both of those just fine.
Cool. So if you're interested, they can check that out. And thanks again, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, there you go. That wraps up today's Industrial Sage Executive Series interview with Jeff Jones, the CEO of Advictorium Solutions. You can check them out at advic.com or advictoriumsolutions.com. And also, if you're interested in learning more about B Corp, you can learn about those as well. We'll have the link in the show notes or on the video player somewhere around here. Will give you access to that. So thanks for watching or listening if you're on the podcast. If you are not subscribed, I highly recommend you jump on our email list there and subscribe, so you can get all these great interviews and insights and different programs that we've got coming out on Industrial Sage. So that's all I got for you today. I'm Danny Gonzalez. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next time with another episode on the Executive Series.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Get notified every time there's a new episode by signing up for our email newsletters. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review so more industrial professionals can find us. Want us to tell your story? Go to industrialsage.com. This week's episode was produced by Rika Wiersma, filmed and edited by Optimum Productions, and our executive producer is Danny Gonzalez. Thank you for watching Industrial Sage.